how serious is this Greater Israel plan, and what effects could that have for the region in the coming months and years?
I do hate making predictions because they often come true, but there was a time when it wasn't okay to talk about the Greater Israel Project. People did think you're right, that you were a conspiracy theorist, but it's absolutely true. And I wonder whether some of our arrests and our trials and our court cases have been perfectly timed around 2027, 2028, and the end of 2026, when you will see a much bigger expansion going on. And that could very likely, when when they said they're going to bomb Gaza back to the Stone Ages, well, we're looking at Lebanon could very easily end up in this situation. We've only seen a small taste of it at the moment, and the southern Lebanon is being bombed, and people are being killed, and now they're attacking a Palestinian refugee camp. But a lot of Lebanese people, as we know, have been slaughtered, and the pager incident. And I think what we're going to see over the next coming year and towards the end of the year is a real push. The Greater Israel Project is going to actually start to become a reality. And by then it'll be too late. The Israelis have played the better chess game, and we're sitting around just moving pawns around the chessboard. But it's going to happen. And I think Lebanon is a target. I actually think Jordan is a very big target, but I get into trouble for saying it. But I also think Syria, and obviously there's parts of Saudi Arabia that are very much involved in losing their land to the Greater Israel Project, and North Sinai, North Sinai. Sorry, I think of the two places. And if you look at the Greater Israel Project, that takes the Suez Canal as well. So, the Egypt, I know that the Egyptian people are very supportive of Palestine. So this is not against the Egyptian people, but Sisi is being very careless about one of his main sources of income. And that's not just the tourist industry over the pyramids, but the Suez Canal. Now, if you look at the Greater Israel Project map, that includes the Suez Canal, that includes parts of Saudi Arabia, that includes pretty much most of Lebanon. I don't know what is going to be left of Lebanon. And I think if the countries don't start rising up and rising up very quickly, it's difficult when you've got America sort of pressing down on you. But, if something isn't done very swiftly, I think that the same time that we are no longer able to post, we are no longer able to work as journalists and reporters. Don't forget, it's 250, Palestinian journalists have already been slaughtered. But we're also looking at the silencing of hundreds of very big people with very big platforms. That is when I think it will all happen. And this is a preparation. This taking us to court, accusing us of this, accusing us of that, trying to jail the people that have been on YouTube, like Richie Medhurst, trying to jail Craig Murray, trying to jail myself, I suppose, trying to jail anybody who's been outspoken or anybody who's prepared to tell the truth tellers. Then it's all going to happen at that time when we become silent. And this is, I've got a sort of, I suppose I'm not very positive about all of these court cases because they do not want people exposing these plans. And how do we expose them? We expose them through social media. It's going to be difficult to stop people. There's a legal reason why they can't stop people using social media. The only way they can silence us is to jail us. And when we are all jailed, that is when you're going to see all of these things start happening, this mad push to start taking more and more territory in Syria, but Lebanon in particular, and Jordan. I feel that Jordan is a holding plateau. I mean, there's a lot of Palestinian refugees live there, but it is also a sovereign country whose king could be forced into exile. the Greater Israel Project is actually one of the most dangerous things that we have ahead of us. And in some ways, the British state is preparing a way, is preparing a pathway so that it can do that. It knows BBC isn't going to cover it. It knows that the mainstream news is not going to cover it. So it's got to silence all of the people that would cover it. And funnily enough, when you look at all of the names of the people who've been arrested, those are the ones who are most prolific on social media, on Twitter, or other platforms, telling the world, wake up, this is happening. Now, they silence all of us. They're just going to quietly get along with it. And I think this is why the dates of the trials are done specifically, because these things are going to start happening by the end of 2026. I would be surprised if you don't see a lot more bombing in Palestine, maybe the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque, which I think will make a lot of people gasp. But I do think the collapse of Al-Aqsa Mosque is imminent if they continue their excavations. Maybe all this will happen by the end of 2026 when we've all been silenced and we're unable to report about it. Hopefully somebody will fill in. But at the moment, people are terrified. People are terrified to take over, if you like, posting 30 to 50 tweets per day. It actually takes up your whole day. It's a full-time job. There isn't really anybody else doing it. So all of those investigative journalists, we're all being silenced. And I think we're being silenced for a reason. And the Greater Israel Project is the reason. And it has begun already. I think Francesca Albanese said it's already begun. And I think she's right. But it hasn't begun on a big enough scale that it's noticeable. And so they're getting away with it. And so, yeah, I do fear the amount of arrests that are being made, because they are prolific reporters and activists, and they're the ones that we need to pass on to the next generation. That something big is going down, something bad is happening, and your government is facilitating it. Do something about it. Get out on the streets. There is no ceasefire. This is all a ruse to make you relax. And so, yeah, it's all internet. It's another part of the Rubik's Cube.
Well, I think you've just outlined how vital your case is. So let's just go back to that. Where does that stand now? I appreciate that you can't get into all of the details and technicalities, but could you explain what charges you're facing and what your current bail conditions are like? I mean, I was hoping to be able to record this show in person with you, but your bail conditions meant that it was too logistically difficult to even make that happen. So explain to us what your current situation is like.
Well, there's 5 charges of terrorism, and actually I would prefer to call them 5 charges of supporting Palestine, because that's what it is. They're journalistic posts that I've made. They seem to be increasing. I'm pretty sure that I started off with 4 on my charge list. I've now got 8. But you know that the Terror Act is a little bit fluid. It's not static. They can arbitrarily change it as they go along. So yeah, so it's 5 charges. Now often when we go to court, I mean, I've won all my court cases up until now. I think I should say Bismillah at that point, but this is 5 charges in one case. So that's a lot of charges to win, if you like, to be acquitted from. So I could get acquitted maybe of 3 or 4, and then it's very difficult to get acquitted to the 5th. Maybe the jury just feel they can't keep saying not guilty, 100 times over. That they feel embarrassed. They've somehow got to say guilty at some point, because it just feels ridiculous. I mean, I have to be acquitted of all 5 charges, and I feel that I can, because I don't feel that I've done anything apart from report what's going on in Gaza. And sometimes I've reported it from the Palestinian side. I've certainly not reported it from the Israeli side. But, and I've used other journalists. So I've reported other journalists' work. And so those journalists are also either have been arrested or on the target list. So, and there's more to come. Let's not forget that the police haven't finished here. So it is a very difficult court case, which I probably can't go into that much. It's a difficult court case because, supporting Palestine, which is what I do, reporting about Gaza, which is what I do, is the actual thing that has been criminalized now. So you're speaking to a jury about supporting something that the government no longer wants you to be able to do. And they will find some way of criminalizing you. And I think I saw it in another interview, even if I get acquitted of all 5 charges and I come out of court, they will then have to find something else, because the Israelis want us to stop posting. They want us to stop telling the world what is going on. They want to stop the people who are doing all of this investigative research. And it isn't me. I mean, God bless them. They're doing an amazing job at investigating and sort of pulling out and finding links with, very dodgy or spurious companies that are also attached to the Israeli regime. So they're doing all of the hard work, but all of these people are facing enormous risks. So you take all of those away, you take all the journalists away, and we've lost 250 journalists in Palestine. So they're the ones who are reporting straight from the ground, the eyewitness reports. They've taken out the international journalists. The BBC won't touch it with a barge pole because it's so Zionist now. I mean, I wouldn't even turn it on if you paid me. So, basically, everybody is being silenced to facilitate something very big that's going to happen. And yes, that does sound conspiracy theorist. But when it happens, when it ends up on our doorstep, when suddenly, maybe parts of Cyprus end up being involved, and then we've got Europe involved as well. When it happens on our doorstep, people will say, oh, yeah, I do remember her saying, 3 years ago, this was going to end up on our doorstep. And I think really you only have to look at it logically. You only have to pull a few sentences apart. You've only got to listen to the Israeli ministers still talking about Amalek, still talking about, ethnic cleansing, still talking about annihilating every single Gazan baby, which I think was one of the last Israeli ministers, and so that their parents and grandmothers could watch them dying at the same time. I've very, very misquoted that tweet, but that's a recent one. So the Israelis are telling us what they're going to do,